हरि ओम। ओम श्री गणेशाय नमः। ओम श्री हिरण्यगर्भाय नमः। ओम श्री महाविष्णवे नमः। ओम श्री महादेवाय नमः। ओम श्री महादुर्गाये नमः। ओम श्री राम रामाय नमः। ओम श्री सद्गुरवे नमः। ओम सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ओम शांति शांति शांतिः। ओम गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुः गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुरेव परब्रह्म तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। समस्त जन कल्याणे निरतं करुणामयं नमामि चिन्मयं देवं सद्गुरुं ब्रह्मविद्वरम् शंकरं शंकराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः। श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानामालयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादशङ्करं लोकशङ्करं। सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्। ईश्वरो गुरुरात्मेति मूर्तिभेदविभागिने व्योमवद्व्याप्तदेहाय दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। शङ्करं परमानन्दं ब्रह्मनिष्ठं यतीश्वरं भाष्यभ्रान्तिहरं वन्दे शुद्धज्ञानैकबोधकम्। ॐ नमः शिवाय 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 ॐ नमः शिवाय। नमः पार्वती पतये हर हर महादेव। हरि ओम हरि ओम। We'll begin with the Shanti mantra. Om आप्यायन्तु ममाङ्गानि वाक् प्राणश्चक्षुश्रोत्रमथो बलमिन्द्रियाणि च सर्वाणि सर्वं ब्रह्मोपनिषदं माहं ब्रह्म निराकुर्याम् मा ब्रह्म निराकरोत् अनिराकरणमस्त्वनिराकरणं मे अस्तु तदात्मनि निरतेय उपनिषत्सु धर्माः ते मयि सन्तु ते मयि सन्तु ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः हरि ओम्. We shall chant from mantra number 5, section 8. अथ यत्र एतत् पुरुषः पिपासति नाम तेज एव तत्पीतं नयते तद्यथा गोनायः अश्वनायः पुरुषनायः इत्येवं तत्तेज आचष्ट उदन्नीति तत्र एतदेव शुङ्गम् उत्पतितं सौम्य विजानीहि नेदम् अमूलं भविष्यतीति तस्य क्व मूलं स्यात् अन्यत्र अद्भिः सौम्यशृङ्गेन तेजो मूलम् अन्विच्छ तेजसा सौम्यशृङ्गेन सन्मूलम् अन्विच्छ सन्मूलाः सौम्येमाः सर्वाः प्रजाः सद् आयतनाः सत्प्रतिष्ठाः यथा नु खलु सौम्य इमास्तिस्रो देवताः पुरुषं प्राप्य त्रिवृत् एकैका भवति तदुक्तं पुरस्तात् एव भवति अस्य सौम्य पुरुषस्य प्रयतः वाङ्मनसि सम्पद्यते मनः प्राणे प्राणः तेजसि तेजः परस्यां देवतायाम्. So the teacher is indicating this Supreme Brahma through this Karya Karana Sambandha, the relationship between effect and cause, and also through that he points out the Ananyatvam, Karya Karana Ananyatvam, that Karya is not different from Karana, though the Karana is different from Karya. So this relationship we see in all cause and effect. So the cause is present in the effect, but effect is not present in the cause. Therefore it is called a root cause. So the teacher not only pointed out this world which we experience in front of us, that it is Brahma alone expressing in different forms, having different names. We may call all objects of this world with whatever name they have, but we can also indicate them as Brahma. The sun can be called sun, but sun can also be indicated as Sat Brahma. The moon is also Sat Brahma. The earth is also Sat Brahma. The trees, the plants, the rivers, the mountains, human beings, animals, all of us are Sat Brahma. Though we are also indicated with different different names because of the difference in forms. But these different forms are only indicated through words. The essential nature of all these forms is Brahma. Thereafter, the teacher also pointed out how we can trace back the source of this body also to Brahma. The body which consumes food and water and fire, means ghee and oil, this also can be traced back to Brahma. The body, the cause of this body, is the food which is eaten by our parents, that becomes this body. And when we are born, we continue to eat food. nourishing the body. So when we are hungry, we eat food. So that why we become hungry, because the food which we had eaten before is taken away by the water, and the water is taken away by fire, and fire goes to is can be traced back to Sat Brahma. Again, the teacher says when we become thirsty, the water which we had drunk is taken away by Teja, and the Teja, when we reflect on this Teja, Teja, tat Teja achasta udanya iti tatra etas shungam utpatitam. Therefore, we come to understand that this body cannot be without a cause. So when we inquire what is the cause of the body, tasya kva moolam syat, anyatra adbhyaha, other than water which we have drunk, what can be the source of this body? Because the water which we drink is the source of anna, food which we eat, and the food becomes the cause of this body. But if we trace back that water, then adbhihi somya shungena tejaha moolam anvichya, we come to know. The teacher says you inquire and find the source of water as teja, and then again inquire into this teja and understand the moola of this teja as sat. So tejasa somya shungena sanmoolam anvichya. And sanmulaha somya, and finally everything is the sat only, because sat is the ultimate cause. It is not an effect, because there are no signs of effect in sat. Sat is that pure existence, existing matra. Therefore, the conclusion is that all these beings and this entire creation is Sanmula. It is born from Sat. Sat Ayatanaha. They are all supported by Sat, and Sat Pratishtha, and all merge back into Sat. And yatha anu khalu soumya imaha tisro devata purusham prapya trivrit ekeka bhavati tat uttam. Again, the teacher reminds that I have already told you how these three, fire, water and earth, when we drink, how they get divided into three through this process of trivrit karanam, which happens within our body. And they are the cause of, and they nourish the Vang, that is the Karmendriyas, they nourish the Pranas, and they nourish the Mana, the subtlest aspect of food which we eat, water which we drink, and the fire which we eat nourishes the mind. Mind means the antakarana along with all the sense organs. Vak means speech. Speech means all the organs of action. And prana. Prana means the pancha pranas. So all of them are nourished by this food which we eat. But what is the source? What is the moola of this vak? Ultimate moola, ultimate source of the speech means karmendriyas, the mana means jnanendriyas and mind, and prana. The teacher says that this we can understand through the experience of death. So when a person is dying, bhavati asya soumya purushasya prayatah. Prayatah means one who is dying. Vang manasi sampadyate. His speech gets merged into the mind. Speech means the entire karmendriyas get merged into the mind. Then manaha prane, the mind gets merged into prana, the pancha pranas. Then pranaha tejasi, and the pranas get merged, or they get enveloped with teja. Teja is fire, heat. And tejaha parasyam devatayam, and the teja merges into that param devata, that is Sat Brahma. So this we were seeing last time. So this death is a very interesting experience. So we experience our Jagrat, Swapna and Sushupti avastha while in this body. When we drop this body, then there is no experience of Jagrat, Swapna, Sushupti. Only with respect to this body, we experience Jagrat, Swapna, Sushupti avastha. And with respect to this body, only we call our own self in the waking state as the waker, in the dream state as the dreamer, in deep sleep state as the deep sleeper. In Sanskrit, the waker is called Bahishpradnya. The dreamer is called Antapradnya, the knower of the inner world. And Sushupt, the deep sleeper is called Pradnya. Pradnya. So we, while living in this body, means expressing through this body, we experience Jagrat, Swapna, Sushupti avastha only. There is no fourth avastha. Many people, they call Turiya as fourth avastha, but it is not an avastha. It is not a state of experience like Jagrat, Swapna, Sushupti. Turiya is another name of our own Supreme Self. Turiya is another name of Sat Brahma. It is not a different avastha. So there are only these three avasthas which we experience: Jagrat, Swapna, and Sushupti. And in these three avasthas, we experience our own presence. So in Jagrat avastha experience, I am along with my body, my mind. I know I exist. I know this world. I know I am the doer of actions. I know I am the experiencer of the joys and sorrows. Then, with a very mysterious phenomena, I get separated from my gross body and I experience a dream. And in that dream state also, I experience my own presence and I experience the world in front of me. At that time, I do not know that I am dreaming. I experience it as a waking state only. I think it is waking and I experience it. Only when I wake up from there, I say, oh, I had a dream. So I experience myself in dream also. If somebody asks me, who are you in my dream, I can give a big lecture to that person. Though when I wake up and I think about the dreamer, I find it very strange to explain myself as the dreamer. Because I was sleeping, this body was sleeping in my bedroom, but the dreamer was out in the forest climbing a tree. So it's a totally strange experience. When I wake up, I say I'm lying on this bed, But just few moments ago when I was dreaming, if somebody asked me, I said I'm climbing this tree. But that is also my experience only. So why this strange experience? Because of the difference in the mind, difference in the intellect, difference in the samskars which we have in our antakaran. But one more mysterious experience we have, and that is called deep sleep, wherein we get separated from the gross physical body as well as our subtle body. Therefore, there is no speciality of that in the sense there is no spatial experience in deep sleep related to me only, because there are no upadhis distinguishing me from another person. Therefore, my deep sleep experience and your deep sleep experience is same. Because what remains in deep sleep when I go to deep sleep and what remains in deep sleep when you go to deep sleep is same. It is the same Atma. Therefore, I and you are one only. The difference is only with respect to our mind, our intellect, and buddhi. But that is not our real nature. That is just a upadhi. The clay is not the pot. Clay cannot be having the qualities of a pot. It is just a upadhi, just an expression. So my real nature is what I experience in Sushupti Avastha. But my connection with the Sthula Sharir, Sukshma Sharir, in the sense the Sthula Sharir, Sukshma Sharir doesn't get disintegrated. So according to the laws of karma, again the sleeping mind wakes up. And when the mind wakes up, I experience myself as awake, because as soon as the mind wakes up, the identification with the mind happens, and I experience myself that I am awake. Identifying with the body, I say I am a human being. I remember my past, that oh, I had slept. While listening to pravachan, I slept. Now I am awake. So the experience of Jagra, Swapna, Sushupti we have. And all these four factors are there, very interesting. The gross physical body, then the karmendriyas, then the senses and the mind, the senses and the antakarana, and pranas. They're all separate actually, because therefore we get separated from them also. In waking, they are all four together, but we get separated from the gross body, we get separated from the karmendriyas, from the Jnanendriyas and mana, pranas. So there are four different units, like they put together, make up my personality. I express through them. But I am that Sat Brahma only. So here the teacher describes the experience of death, the phenomena of death. And Shankaracharya ji in his Bhashya, he gives the details. So that means we get separated from this physical body. But the Sukshma Sharir, is not disintegrated. Once we get separated from the physical body, it is then discarded. Then others, they burn it or bury it or whatever they want to do. So, when a person is dying, then the first thing which happens in a natural death, the whole process happens in its own pace. Though sometimes death happens in various different ways, through accident, or sometimes people commit suicide, or through some disease. Various ways a person dies. If such a thing happens, then also the whole process happens quickly. But if a natural death is happening, the elderly person is dying, so all the family members are surrounding him, and he is talking to the members because the karmendriyas are active. He can signal with his hands, he can move his legs, he can urinate, he can excrete. So he speaks. Then after some time he stops speaking. The relatives say, oh, he has stopped speaking now. Because the karmendriyas get withdrawn into the mind. Because their source is the mind only actually. So they merge into the mind. So when they merge into mind, while the person is still awake, the karmendriyas merge into mind. So the jnanendriyas are still functioning. The mind is still functioning. The person is recognizing those who are surrounding him. He can move his eyes, he can hear what others are saying, he can feel, he can think, but he cannot respond because the karmendriyas are not there. So there is no response in that sense. Though the indriyas, they function, so emotions are also there, and the emotions may get expressed through some tears in his eyes or something like that. So, Shankaracharya writes, कि वाची उपसंवृतायां मनसी मनो मनन व्यापारेण केवलेन वर्तते. So when the karmendriyas are withdrawn, then only he remains with the mind along with the senses, and their function is going on. Then manaha api yada upasamriyate tada manaha prane sampannam bhavati. But then after some time, the mind also gets withdrawn. The senses along with the mind gets withdrawn. The senses go into the mind. The senses, they just get withdrawn into the mind. So there is, the whole thing is retraced. The indriyas are retraced into the mind. Therefore, this person actually, even when the eyes are open, they remain open. Therefore, many times we see that a person who has died, his eyes are open. So others, they, with their hand, they close their eyes. But otherwise, the eyes remains open. If they are open, they remain open. Because they are withdrawn. The whole functioning of the eyes are withdrawn. The functioning of the ears are withdrawn. The functioning of the nose, smelling is withdrawn. The taste is withdrawn into the mind. And the mind is withdrawn into the pranas. So, tada manaha prane sampannam bhavati sushupta kala iva. Shankaracharya ji gives example just like deep sleep. In deep sleep also, our indriyas, karmendriyas, jnanendriyas, mind, everything gets withdrawn into the pranas. So Sushupta Kala Iva, just as in the deep sleep. Tada Pashvasta Nyatayoho na Vijaniti iti ahuhu. When such a thing happens, the relatives who are surrounding that person, they say that, oh, now he is not understanding, he is not knowing. His eyes are open, but they have become totally blank. See, even though a person may not speak, the eyes speak. The eyes, they have their own language, they can also speak. But when a person has withdrawn the eyes also, means the organ of perception, into the mind and all the senses into the mind, the eyes become blank. They are blank. They are dead. They are blank. See, an enlightened person's eyes are not, they express the deep enlightenment of the person. There are no restlessness in his mind. There is no ignorance. There is no agitation. So his eyes are alive. But they are not, they don't have desires. The eyes don't have desires in them. If you see Bhagavan Ramana Maharshi's eyes in the lovely pictures which we have of Bhagavan, so mysterious and so wonderful eyes. Behind those eyes, there are no desires. There is no anger. There is no jealousy. There is no confusion. There is no pride. There is no attachment. There is no mamatva, ahankar. But there is that expression of enlightenment, supreme peace, infinite bliss, fearlessness, complete abidance in that supreme. Our Pujya Gurudev, Swami Chinmayananda Maharaj, when he visited Bhagavan Ramana Maharshi's ashram, he went to the ashram, he did namaskar to Bhagavan Ramana Maharshi and just sat in front of him silently, just looking at him, looking at his body, looking at his eyes. Total silence. No one was speaking. Bhagavan was also not speaking. Absolute silence was there outside also, and a deep inner silence which Bhagwan Ramana Maharshi could express. And Pujya Gurudev had a very mysterious experience looking at his eyes. He could not define them, he could not understand them also. See, when we look at someone's eyes, we can understand what is happening. I mean, we can just guess also. But here, Pujya Gurudev was looking at Bhagwan's eyes and he could not understand them. They were great mystery only to him. He had never seen such eyes before, never experienced such thing. Later on, Pujya Gurudev, he went to Taponji Maharaj and he learned Vedanta from him. And then he has mentioned that after learning Vedanta, I could understand what Bhagwan Ramana Maharshi's eyes were conveying. They were conveying what the Upanishads are conveying, without any speech, without any sound. They were conveying the supreme truth only, because that supreme truth only was expressing through his eyes. So an enlightened person's eyes are totally different. A person who is alive, his eyes are different. Even a person who is asleep, if you open their eyes, they are also withdrawn, like, or a person who faints or unconscious. But person who is dead means who has withdrawn during death. When the senses get withdrawn into the mind, the eyes become totally blank. So there is no difference between the eyes and just some image or some stone. So when such a thing happens, the senses, the mind get withdrawn into the pranas. Pranas are very subtle. Pranas are actually the Kriya Shakti of that Ishvara only. Pranas are the most powerful phenomena of Bhagwan. Through the Shakti of pranas only, the whole activity of this world happens. All activities, whether in the material world, whether in the small, tiny little atom, or the activities happening at a macro level in the universe, two galaxies merging into each other, or two great giant black holes merging and creating that gravitational waves everywhere. All this phenomena is also happens by that force, one universal force, prana. Great scientist Einstein, Albert Einstein, Stephen Hawking, and all were trying to find out whether there is one universal force which can explain everything. Our scriptures say, yes, one universal force is there, that is prana. If you understand the secret of prana, you can understand the secret of this whole world, how it functions. So that prana alone expresses in this body as pancha pranas, taking the support of the food and water which we drink and all to express. So while in this body, the pranas need water for its sustenance. But otherwise, prana can sustain without water. Water is not required for prana. When the pranas leave this body, it doesn't need water to drink. It is not dependent on water. But when it expresses in this body as pancha pranas, it requires water. Otherwise, it leaves the body. हमको पानी दे दो, I will remain here. Otherwise, I am leaving. So pranas are very wonderful Shakti of Ishvara. It's also called the Para Prakriti. Is Para Prakriti. That Para Prakriti only activates the Apara Prakriti. So our mind also is activated, all the functions of the mind, the senses happen by the power supplied by the pranas only. So the mind, when it is withdrawn, that also by the Shakti of the pranas, the mind, the senses get withdrawn, and they merge into the pranas. The whole mind merges into the pranas. But the pranas remain active. The mind, the senses, everything has merged. The relatives around, they wonder what is happening. Shankaracharya writes that when prana, later on prana also withdraws, but now prana is there, but the mind is not functioning, the person is alive. At that time, the relatives, they even give Ganga Jal, means pour Ganga Jal in his mouth. And very strange, the action of drinking also happens, which is done by the pranas. Because karmendriyas are not there, but the pranas, pranapan vyanudan samam, they do that function also. So Ganga Jal is, or Tulsi Patra, Ganga Jal, traditionally that is given to the dying person. So pranas are there still. Then the pranas also get withdrawn. Shankaracharya writes, कि तदा पार्श्वस्थाः ज्ञातव्य न विजानाति इति आहुः प्राणश्च तदा ऊर्ध्वश्वासी स्वात्मनि उपसंवृत बाह्यकरणः संवर्ग विद्यायां दर्शनात् हस्तपादादीन् विक्षिपन् मर्मस्थानानि निकृन्तन् इव उत्सृजन क्रमेण उपसंवृतः तेजसी संपद्यते. This prana then start withdrawing from the body. See, pranas, they maintain this body. Even when we are asleep, when we go to sleep, the mind gets withdrawn into the pranas. The karmendriyas, jnanendriyas get withdrawn into the pranas in deep sleep. But the pranas continue to be there, protecting the body. So the breathing process, the digestion, the growth, everything happens because the pranas are there, active. Pranas don't go to sleep. If pranas were to sleep, then we will die. So every day when we go into deep sleep state, pranas they continue to remain active. But when the death happens, the pranas they withdraw from the body. They because the prarabdha of the body is over. The pranas no longer sustain the body. The time of the body to be dropped has come. So pranascha tada urdhvashvasi swatmani upasamrat. So the pranas it pulls itself out of this body from all the limbs, from every place. Because we have this pancha pranas, mean 5 pranas, prana, apan, vyana, udan, saman. They have their own locus from where they function in this body. The breathing in, breathing out, balancing this breathing in and breathing out, the saman vayu, then the vyana, which circulates everything within the body, the udan vayu, all this function from specific locations. So they are like the marmasthana. So the pranas pull itself out of this. And when that pulling itself out happens, it is utsrujan kramena upasamrita tejasi sampadyate. प्राणः च तदा ऊर्ध्वश्वासी स्वात्मनि उपसंहृत बाह्यकरणः संवर्ग विद्यायां दर्शनात् हस्तपादादीन् विक्षिपन् मर्मस्थानानि निकृन्तन् इव उच्छृजन् क्रमेण उपसंहृतः तेजसी संपद्यते. It pulls itself at that time. Shankaracharya writes, our body also shakes. Sometimes the hands and legs they flutter like, because the pranas they withdraw from those limbs, from the hands, from the legs, from the organs of the body. So pranas they withdraw, and at that time when they are withdrawing, some shaking of the body can happen. So then it gets withdrawn from there, and this prana, after withdrawing, still it is there in the body. It takes the heat of the body and uses that as a covering, means it envelopes itself into the heat of the body. So there is the relatives surrounding, they see nothing happening, totally is gone motionless. So tada tadahuhu nyatayohu na chalati iti. So the relatives say, oh, now he's not moving at all. Has he died? So mrutaha na itiva. Has he died or is he still living? Vichikitsantaha, thinking in this way, the relatives touch the body. Deham alabhamana ushnam cha upalabhamana deha ushnaha jivati iti. So the relatives, they touch the person's body, and if the body is warm, then they say that, oh, he's still alive, he is not dead. See, the warmth of the body is there, then the pranas are still in the body. They have not gone from the body, but they have withdrawn from all the limbs and all, but they have not gone out of the body. The heat is still there. So we experience this heat in our body. It is the teja. This is very interesting. This teja is that panchikruta teja. The tej which is born from that, which is converted from that tanmatras. Hiranyagarbha converts these tanmatras into panchikrita, panchamahabhuta. So which is described in Taittiriya Upanishad that Akashad tasmat atmanaha akashas sambhutaha akashad vayuhu vayoragnihi agnerapah adbhya prithivya doshadayah oshadibhyonnam annat purushaha. So that teja is there in our body, expressing in our body as heat. That fire, the panchikrita fire, is expressing in our body as heat. Otherwise, our body is made up of the Trivrat Karanam through the third Trivrat Karanam. Sustaining on the food of the second Trivrat Karanam. See, all this I'm saying because you have already heard the previous lectures. So those who have not heard, you should go through the previous lectures also. So the heat which is there in the body is the teja, which was described in the mantra, that sat, from that sat the teja is born. That teja is there, which we experience as heat in the body. That heat is also withdrawn from the body. That heat also gets withdrawn from the body, and that prana envelops itself into that heat. The prana, which is containing the mana, means the antakarana, indriyas, karmendriyas, that prana envelops itself into this heat of the body. So that time, these relatives, yada tad api औष्ण्यलिंगम तेज उपसंह्रियते तदा tat teja parasyam devatayam vashamyati. So the heat is withdrawn, and when a person, then the relatives touch the body, they experience it extremely cold. Then they say that he is gone. So what happens? The pranas, taking the heat of that body, leaves the body. The pranas, along with all the sukshma sharir, taking the heat as the envelope, leaves the body. So a dying person, we may not see what is leaving that person, but sometimes some people have experience of something leaving also. If the whole environment and the whole condition there is conducive, then maybe. I have one student in Cuba, Havana. She is a doctor, and she is also has treated many terminally ill patients and have seen many people dying also. And she is also doing her own sadhana of yoga and all. So she was relating her experience that she has seen often where a person, when he dies, something like an aperture, like a aperture, like a like a but like a human figure, but not with limbs and all, just some blob-like thing, very very subtle, as though moving up only for a fraction of a second and just disappears. As though moving up from that dying person, and just within fraction of a second, just disappears, as though. Actually, the heat of the body leaves the body along with the pranas, along with the mind, along with intellect. And where do they go? Where do they go? Parasyam devatayam prashamyati. They merge with the param devata, that is Sat. So after leaving this body, all this sukshma sharir merge into that Sat. What about me? You are talking about my body, gross body and subtle body. What about me? I am Sat only actually. When the mind gets withdrawn, I experience sleep. So I don't even know what is happening at the process. So when the mind is withdrawn, there is no experience of I am in the mind. Because the experience of I am in the mind is there when the mind is active. And that I am alone, I think, is I am. Because of adhyas, because of avidya. But that is not I am that Sat. But I have not recognized that Sat. So Shankaracharya writes कि तदा एवं क्रमेण उपसंह्रियते स्वमूलं प्राप्ते च मनसि तत्स्थः जीवः अपि सुषुप्तकालवत् निमित्तः उपसंहारात् उपसंह्रियमानः सन् सत्याभिसन्धिपूर्वकं चेत् उपसंह्रियते सदैव संपद्यते. What about me? The sense of I which I have in the body and the mind is not there. Once I experience something like deep sleep, so where am I? I have also become one with Sat. I become one with Sat. And Shankaracharya writes, which we will think a little more elaborately in our next class. He writes, कि सत्याभिसन्धिपूर्वकं चेत् उपसंह्रियते. That if I die, and before that, if I had gained that self-knowledge, if I had that self-knowledge before death of this body, then when all this sukshma sharir and all get dissolved into that Sat, Shankaracharya says, I too become one with Sat, and na punar dehantarayas sushuptad iva uttishtati, and I am not born again. Like a person who is asleep, he wakes up. Like that, once I become one with that Sat, I am not born again. But an ignorant person when he dies, his body, mind, everything merges into that Sat. He also merges into that Sat, just as Sushupti Avastha. But according to the karmas, he is born again. Either born again in this world as a human being or animal, bird, plant, according to the karmas. Or according to karmas, he is born into some other world, into Swargalok, goes to Swargalok or Narakalok or other lokas, depending on the karmas. But a person who has gained knowledge before death, who is self-realized person, when he drops his body, he becomes one with that Sat and is not born again. Shankaracharya ji gives example. यथा लोके सभये देशे वर्तमानः कथंचित इव अभयं देशं प्राप्तः तद्वत्. He said, just like a person living in a troubled country, full of trouble, full of negativities, wars, famine, corruption. When that person leaves that country and goes to a very prosperous and good country, then he no longer returns to that bad country again. Similarly, an enlightened person, once he attains that Sat, he doesn't take birth into this world again. But itarastu anatmatnyaha, but others who are ignorant, tasmadeva mulat sushuptat iva utthaya, they again wake up from that Sat, just as a person in deep sleep wakes up. Utthaya mrutva punah deha jalam avishati, and again gets caught up in some other body, is born again, or go to some other loka. So punah deha jalam avishati yasmat mulat utthaya deham avishati jivaha. Therefore, we should gain self-knowledge before we die, so that we are not born again. It's very important, interesting portion. More about this we will see in our next class. And also the most important now mantra is the next mantra. The seventh mantra, where the teacher then gives the gist of the teachings of all the shastras through that one beautiful sentence, Tattvamasi Shvetaketu. So that we will see in our class next time. So till then, you take care, be happy, safe, peaceful, healthy, do your work, do your sadhana. Listen to the pravachan again. Sit quietly with full attention, focus. Listen and try to understand what is being taught. Don't raise unnecessary confusion in your mind, but just listen with full faith, because what is revealed is the knowledge given in our Upanishad. They are the ultimate Praman. They are true. So listen and think about it, meditate, and we will meet again on Friday. Hari Om. Shri Ram Jaya Ram Jaya Jaya Ram. 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 Shri Ram Jaya Ram Jaya Jaya Ram, 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 Jaya Jaya Ram, Jaya Jaya Ram, बोलिए सियावर रामचंद्र भगवान की जय। ओम पूर्णमद पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते। ओम शांति शांति शांति। हरि ओम श्री गुरुभ्यो नमः। हरि ओम।